This is the beautiful Formentor beach in Mallorca. Huge old pines line the shore, and at the far end of the beach, the light reflects off the sea up into the pines, which is breathtakingly magical. The water's crystal clear and full of life. We were there early and had the place to ourselves for over an hour. Absolute bliss. This video was completely unplanned, but after a good beach scavenge of old building materials and glass, I felt inspired for a bit of rock weaving. One of the things I love about rock weaving is that you can fit all the materials and equipment you need into a small pocket. I carry mine in a specific pouch, which contains a small selection of naturally dyed linen. This is my yarn of choice, but you can use many different fibres for this type of weaving. A small pincushion with a few bent tapestry needles, though a flat bodkin would be easier to use for this type of weaving. I forgot mine on this trip. And a small pair of scissors. That really is all you need to enjoy a bit of rock weaving. When selecting your rock, it helps to have a few flat sides to prevent the warp, which are all the tension threads that are initially wound around the rock, from sliding off. Select a yarn for your warp. Take the tail and tie it around the rock, securing it in a double knot, positioning the knot at the edge of the rock. If the remaining tail is a little bit long, you can trim it down now. Now firmly wrap the yarn around the rock. I'm spacing my warp threads so the gap in between them is around the same thickness as the yarn, possibly a little bit less, but you can play around with this. The thickness of your yarn and the spacing of your warp threads will affect the final appearance of the pattern, but there are no hard and fast rules here. Enjoy the process and see what you like the look of. If you don't like how it looks, just pull it out and start again. I like to think that there are no mistakes. It's all just one big learning curve, and the more you practice, the more you'll tune in to what you like the look of. Because of the 2-2 twill pattern, I'll be weaving on this rock, and I'll explain more about that in a moment. I'm wrapping the yarn in multiples of 4 for a total of 12 warp threads. Once you've reached your desired warp width, trim the tail and using a needle, tie the tail onto the final warp and secure it in a double knot, wiggling the knot so it sits at the edge of the rock as you did at the start. Once fully secured, you can trim the tail down. Now your warp is secured and in place, you can neaten the warp on both sides of the rock and adjust the spacing using your fingers or a needle like I'm doing here. Before we get stuck into weaving, I just wanted to explain to you how to record a pattern so that you've got a record of it. It's really useful doing this because you can then check back and see what you've done, what you've liked, what you haven't liked. And to record it down on a piece of paper, this pattern is called a 2-2 twill. So you can see that twill pattern running from right to left here, and then that pattern is reversed back in the opposite direction. A 2-2 twill is a 4-shaft pattern, which would be done, if shafts are used on conventional looms. But here we're just going to record it in a block of 4. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I wove this, I'm right-handed, and when I wove this, I wove from right to left because my right hand is stronger. And so I'm going to count these threads from right to left. So that's my first warp thread, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've done this in blocks of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 12 threads in total. One block of a 2-2 twill. So that's my block of 4 by 4. And so I'm going to write my warp threads here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So each one of these columns represents one warp thread. So that's one block of this pattern. And to record a twill is a 2-2 twill is 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, and 1 and 4. And so what that means, where these crosses are, it's called a lift plan. So on a conventional loom, you would be, where there are crosses, you would be lifting those threads out of the way. But because this is a rock, you're going to be weaving underneath them manually, so they're not lifting anywhere. But where those crosses are means you're going to go underneath the warp threads, and then where there are blank spaces, it means you're going to go over the top of them. So here on this first pick, which is a row of weaving, I've gone under 2, you can see there, and then I've gone over 2. And because that's then repeated 3 times, this pattern block, so we'll pop that in there, the extra 2 blocks on 1, 2, 3, 4 on the side there. So we're going to repeat this pattern over. So we're going to go 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 1, 1 and 4. And then again, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 1, 4. And so there you can see where you've got your 1 and your 4. That's completing. That's where your pattern repeats. And so you get your twill lines there. So in this first pick of weaving, we've gone under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2. And you can see that here on this first pick, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2. Now then, as you flip your rock over and you pull the thread nice and taut, you're going to do the same on this side. So you're just going to repeat this on the reverse as well. And you'll notice on the back here that there are 13 threads, and that's just where you've had to tie it round and attach it to secure your warp. But don't worry about that, just use the first 2 threads you come to, and then wherever it ends on this end. And then you're back round to this side where you're going to start weaving the second pick, which means you're going over the first one, and then you're going under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2. And then on this one here, you're just going over 1 on the end. Now, when you've woven as much in the 2-2 twill in one direction as you like, and it will depend on the size of your rock, how many warp ends you've got, you know, how much you want to weave of the surface. So there's no set amount that you need to weave in one direction. When you want to knock it back in the opposite direction, you are simply going to reverse the pattern. So the last repeat of this, the last pick of this pattern here is 1 and 4. So if you've woven that and you want to start going back in the other direction, as you come to start your next pick of weaving, you're going to then do 3 and 4, and then the next one 2 and 3, and then 1 and 2, and you keep then repeating that in reverse until you've got your twill line going back as far as you want it in the other direction. I hope once you start weaving, all of this will make perfect sense, but if it doesn't, give me a shout in the comments and I will do my best to help you out. The weft is the threads that interlace with the warp to create your woven surface. Because this weft is quite thin, I'm going to double it up. I'm using quite a long continuous length so I don't run out. If you'd like to work out roughly how much you'll need to do this, you could wrap the weft yarn around the rock, sitting the wraps very snugly next to each other for the desired woven width, and then add a little extra on top of this. Referring to your notes if you've made some, and using a spare needle to lift the warp threads if they're tricky to get under, start by weaving under the first 2 warp threads, then over the next 2, under the next 2, over, under, over, all the way to the end. Pull the weft all the way through, leaving a nice long tail of at least 3 to 4 inches hanging out at the start. This will be woven in and tidied up at the end. Now turn your rock over and do exactly what you've done on the front, weaving under the first 2, over the second 2, under the third 2, and so on all the way to the end. Pull the weft through so it's hugging firmly around the rock and adjust the position of your pick, which is your row of weaving, to where you'd like it to sit. Now turn your rock over to the front side and weave your second pick. This pick starts by going over the first warp, then under the second and third warps, then over, under in twos all the way to the end. Pull the weft through so it's hugging firmly around the rock, and then push the pick down into position with your needle. The term for this is called beating. Turn your rock again and weave the second pick on the reverse. Continue weaving like this until you want to reverse your twill. In this case, I've woven one repeat of the pattern, so 4 picks of weaving in total. To reverse the pattern, you simply read it back in the opposite direction. So where the last pick started by weaving under warps 1 and 4, the next pick will start by weaving under warps 3 and 4. Continue weaving like this until you've reached your desired width. In this case, I've mirrored the first half, so I've woven 3 more picks. Once you've finished weaving, cut the weft, leaving a nice long tail of at least 3 to 4 inches. To tidy the tails away, one at a time, thread them through your needle. In this case, I wove them as a whole extra pick before posting the needle down behind the weaving and trimming the tail right down to the surface. Repeat this step with the last tail, either weaving another pick or skipping this and simply passing the tail down through the back of the weaving. You can now give your warp and weft one final jiggle with your fingers and needle and admire your handiwork. If you've enjoyed this video, you can support our little business by giving it a like, and if you'd like to know when our new videos are released, please do subscribe to our channel. I published my first book, Weaving as Art Therapy for Beginners, in 2023, in which you'll find several other off-loom weaving techniques and a chapter of guided therapeutic weaving activities that were co-written with an art therapist. You may also be interested in our self-paced online weaving and natural dyeing courses. You'll find links to all of these in the description of this video. Until next time, happy weaving, folks.